Well, thanks so much for still staying with us. Remember that you can be a part of the program by calling us on the number that will soon be reflected on your screen, but also you can take advantage of our social media platform. That's a Diamond TV Online, where the stream is currently live and available. I can see some comments that have come through. Continue giving us your feedback and your comments regarding the issues that we have on the table tonight. Now, when ZESCO announced the start of load shedding in March of 2024, many Zambians hoped it would be a short-term measure. But nearly a year and a half later, the electricity situation has only worsened, disrupting homes and businesses alike. In response, the government has rolled out various initiatives to address the crisis, including the recent installation of the Chisamba power plant. The question is, have these initiatives worked tonight? We are privileged to be joined in by energy expert Dr. Johnstone Chikwanda. He's joining us via video conference. Thank you so much, Dr. Chikwanda, for making time to be a part of tonight's edition of Diamond Live. Dr. Johnstone Chikwanda, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Fantastic.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Fantastic. From the time ZESCO announced that we are going to start load shedding, obviously the first period was that the country was going to be load shedded 8 hours daily. The situation from last year, Dr. Chikwanda, has only worsened. Did you anticipate that the country would go up until now where we are without people having proper number of hours in their home in terms of electricity?
Yeah, I think to answer that question, we need to look at what exactly happened to the water level. And when you check how the water had depleted in our main reservoirs, I was able to tell that it was going to take maybe 2 rainfall seasons to 3 in order to bring those water levels to where we are a bit comfortable. And I said that it is high time we started behaving as if Kariba Dam doesn't exist. And so we saw government roll out a lot of initiatives in order to accelerate the transformation to other forms of energy, or the migration. All the tariffs, I mean, the taxes were waived. The streamlining of the licensing, the fast tracking of the licensing procedure. So from the creation of an enabling environment, I think almost everything got done. But now the question was, how was the private sector going to respond? That is what was going to determine whether we're going to come out of the cave quickly or not. And indeed, here where we are, perhaps not what I had expected. I didn't expect the gravity. I know just the pivot to be where it is sitting at the moment. I was very optimistic that looking at the initiatives, the renovations to the policy frameworks, I thought that the private sector was going to jump and help us to exploit and invest the crisis sooner than later. So to answer that question, I wasn't fully anticipating that we could be in this situation, looking at the number of initiatives that we got rolled out.
But when you speak of private sector, I mean, when we talk about maybe hydro electricity supply, that has been a big conversation. But through this crisis, we've seen a lot of the focus going towards alternative sources of energy, in this case, solar. And we did see a meeting where President Hakainde Hichilema sat down with a number of chief executives from different banks. And just a few months ago, we saw the commissioning of the 100 megawatt solar plant, which has been described as a milestone achievement. And this was about over 70% of it was funded by Stanbic Bank. When we look at some of these, the involvement of private sector through this example here, are we seeing progress being made, even though it's in this case through the alternative sources of energy?
Well, first and foremost, it has been very challenging to unlock funding for a number of reasons, some of which I may not be able to put across, this publicly. But to be honest with you, funding has been very, very challenging. First and foremost, we know the status of ZESCO. It is in public domain that ZESCO has had serious financial challenges, more so that it doesn't even have more than 70% of electricity to sell. So its financial status has been in serious doldrums. Now, when you are in that state, it becomes very difficult to raise money from the open markets. And then we are also under this IMF oversight that it even complicates matters. So based on my own assessment, but of course subject to colleagues with maybe a little bit more frontline insights, it has been incredibly challenging for ZESCO to raise access funding for this kind of projects. So if you look at the Samba project, the way it was financed, it had to be leveraged off Caribbean North Bank, corporation, which is a subsidiary of ZESCO. Perhaps it's got a healthier balance sheet and maybe looking cleaner than the parent company. So it had to go that way. And then funding for that 70% was also not easy, because Stanbic wanted a guarantee to be raised. And that guarantee could only come either from ZESCO or from government. And both of them were not able to do so. So it had to take Africa Green Corp to raise a guarantee on behalf of Caribbean North Bank in order to unlock that particular. So this is very innovative, and perhaps that's a model that we should be looking to. It's simply been very, very challenging to raise money from the public sector. Otherwise, by now we should have seen a bit more coming off the ground, because that is the only major thing. It's funding. Of course, the other wave, because this kind of situation, I've got two waves to read: the funding perspective and the logistical nightmares, because these panels are coming from overseas. And for projects of this nature, you need maybe 3-4 months to get them arrive. So you are contending with another wave there. But the major determining factor has been the issue of unlocking funding. Any other project up, I'm telling you, we'll have to check and assess how was the funding done. So to turn around all these things and navigate, we should perhaps be researching on how can we innovatively come up with more funding away from looking in the face of, depending on...
Perhaps that's the next question that we want to find out from you. Where do you think, how then do we start as a country to raise, funds locally to ensure that we foot, these, projects, for power as a country?
Yeah, I'm aware that, NAPSA has come to the party, which is very good. We need to appreciate that. They have participated in making it possible for Mamba Phase 2. And if there is any more scope, if they still have a bit more runway, I would be encouraging NAPSA to see what else they can do to try and, and assist. And any other entity private entity, ZCCM-IH, any other state-owned company that is got a healthier balance sheet, I've seen them declaring a lot of dividends, meaning perhaps they are quite in a better position. So those need to be invited to the party. But over and above that, I would like to appeal to my fellow Zambians and any other person that opportunities like this, they are quite, they come in a lifetime. To raise $100 million, for instance, what you just need is 100,000 Zambians or people. On that, they can be mobilized locally and those in the diaspora. If you manage to come up with 100,000 Zambians or people, each of them contributing just $1,000, you will have raised 100 million. If you want to scale down, the number is too high, maybe just focus on 50,000 people locally and outside the country, each of them raising $2,000. That's $100 million. And these projects are costing in that range if it's 100 megawatts. So we need to also see how we can encourage ordinary people, and people are raising money. They have got these village bankings and things like that. When you see how much money they are breaking on month, it's quite a lot.
Yeah.
So it is about creating an innovation that can pull some of these funds and mop some funds from ordinary people.
You earlier on intimated, our first question, that you had expected this, the private sector to jump on, especially that there was a crisis in this situation, the electricity crisis. Maybe paint to us a picture. Don't you think perhaps the reason for why investors have not come to invest in this type of business is because they're looking at whether the business is lucrative or not? And from your research and from your understanding, is this sector really lucrative? And if yes, then why aren't we seeing so many investors coming to invest in Zambia, in this sector?
Yeah, of course, we have had the perennial issue on the tariff. But if you see, the electricity cost of service study had recommended a tariff multi-year migration plan for 5 years, which was to take us to cost-reflective tariffs, although that target may have moved. But we have moved away from that path because the country has been put on an emergency tariff. And when you look at the pricing structure of this emergency tariff, I think we should be in a position to, in a fair way, be able to attract some investment. And when you look at the tariff structure for the Chisamba itself, I think we are making good progress in that direction. We are not where we're supposed to be, but I think a significant leap has been achieved. And so that means that what could be worrying the investors is not just about the tariff. It could be maybe the instability of the currency and, of course, the ability of the off-takers to pay, those other risky perspectives. That could be what, I think you need to call one of the bankers as well and nail them down, find out why are they not funding these things. But I know that some of the issues they are raising are concerns over, the off-takers and other power purchase agreement perspectives.
Now, with all the strides that have been made and your description of what has been going on and what recommendations would be for us to get to where we need to be, look at the pace at which these things have happened, the strides have been made. What would your projection be in terms of Zambia being more stable in as far as electricity supply is to the various customers in the country, the various citizens in this country?
Yeah, when you look at the pipeline and you go to Zambia Development Agency, where I've been myself, there are projects worth more than $20 billion. Now, these projects, they are at different, stages of development. There is quite a number of projects that are on the ground. Even me, myself, as a consultant, some of the customers that I handhold, I know at what stage they are. But the process has been moving quite slow, to reach financial closure for a number of them. And even some of the projects we anticipated they should be coming online this year, the projections are pointing to first quarter 2026. So in my view, to come out completely out of this cave, it is something I think for maybe first quarter 2026. That's my assessment. I know that we're doing all we can to ensure that we try to see how the gap can be reduced by December, but the possibility of creeping into 2026 with some deficits is high, and it's better to bite the silver bullet and just so that people are prepared, and we all know we are trying our level best, but to say that we're gonna end this kind of space within the next 2 months or 3 months, I think that will be trying to catch the rainbow, I think.
You've been a strong proponent of people moving, away from depending on electricity from ZESCO, and you've been really pushing that, people jump on alternative sources of energy. Obviously, we've given examples of how we've moved from, people initially, were using these types of bulbs that we're using to now, bulbs that don't require for us to have a lot of electricity. We've also seen with the geyser projects as well. Do you think we've done enough, awareness as a country, especially during this crisis, to in an attempt to make people move to, alternative sources of energy, especially that we are amidst this crisis?
Yeah. First and foremost, I think when the load shedding last year was announced, and I think at the press conference at that time, one of the things I talked about was let's try to learn from how past reactions were done. In 2016, one of the effective measures that was deployed was the banning of importation and manufacturing of filament bulbs in the country immediately, because people were not migrating on their own to energy-saving bulbs. So it had to take renovations to the laws and just stop them using the law. And the population was migrated. And because of that, we've been able to save in the range of 200 megawatts, I'm told. So one of the waves that remained was to stop the electric geysers as well, because they consume a lot of power. And we've tried to encourage people to migrate to hybrid geysers or solar geysers. Even new houses that are coming up, they are not just moving. Everyone is still just moving to electric geysers. So if people are not moving and you are facing a calamity like this, the best is just to issue a statutory instrument, go in again, and stop the importation of or manufacturing of electric geysers in the country, maybe for the next 5 years or 10 years. And go in and find other measures as well. I think with regard to awareness, people are aware, they know about solar, but it is perhaps maybe the issue of resources, but awareness has been created. But maybe where it also needs to be is the shifting of the mindset, so that people can know that electricity is expensive. We have to use it wisely. The issue of keeping security lights on throughout the night, even when there are sensors, motion sensors, which can regulate them. Issue of keeping lights, on, and the appliances on, even when you are not watching TV, they are on, and charging phones overnight, even when they are fully charged. So we need to continue to invest in shifting the mindset of the people. So that one, perhaps we need to enhance our engagements.
Now, I'll put you a bit on the spot with my next question, but it's a build-up from my earlier question on projections of stability and as far as electricity is concerned. I think people tend to say this on a lighter note in this country, but I think it's based off precedents and observations that when we experience load shedding, especially in the recent past, the recent load shedding or the load management, as it's also known, that we've been experiencing as a country, what has been noted is that when we're getting into an election year, there seems to be stability when it comes to electricity supply. And from what we learned also from the last election, going into the last election, 2021, we saw stability of electricity supply. Soon after a new government was formed, we were back to the challenges of electricity supply. After they also declared, the current government declared that they ended load shedding. What could be the correlation here, and maybe from a technical point of view of what tends to happen? Because from your projections, you say in the next 3 months or so, we still might not see that stability of electricity supply in this country. But what the anticipation is going into next year, somehow, we as a country, we're going to experience that stability of electricity supply. What could be the correlation, and sometimes those, whether short-term measures that could be put in place to ensure that this happens?
You mean the correlation between the political season and the availability of electricity?
Yes, precisely.
Look, Chimweka.
Yes.
Look, I think I need a bit more facilities to process this question. But look, I think, when the stakes are so high, so maybe a lot gets done. But to be honest with you, obviously, when you are in an election season, you don't want things like this to happen. And so perhaps there is a lot that you have to go X, Y, Z to make sure that you can locate the electricity. But I think I know what you are trying to take me into. But going into next year, believe me, if you maybe are referring to the past experiences, what goes on or what, and I'm trying to avoid to slide into the political side.
Yes.
Of things. I want to keep myself to the technical. This particular wave that we are going into, the depth of the deficit is so high. It's been almost unprecedented. So previously, perhaps the gap wasn't so deep, so it could easily be bridged by importing, from other places. But this time, it is deep cut. This is deep structure. I'm telling you the truth. Because even in the region, for instance, in Mozambique, they have started to remove, they're starting to remove all the turbines on one of the biggest dams there, Kaburabasa. They are refurbishing that, and they'll be taking out one turbine at a time over a period of time. So by the end of this year, one turbine will be out. So that will be 400 megawatts off. And it will be like that. So it will be difficult to anticipate any power from Mozambique into the region to support, unless they have to starve their own people. So we just have to make sure that we work extremely hard as a country. When Mamba comes up, phase 2, which I'm told by April or May, that is another 300 megawatts. And anywhere where we can scroll around some of these projects that are in the pipeline, I think, and if the rainfall, is okay, it will be possible. But in terms of the correlation, I think, I don't want to fly into that space. Chimweka, I think, bear with me, please.
No, I understand you.
I will come with a lot of facilities.
I understand you, and that is why my question was mostly around some of those short-term measures that can be implemented to ensure that people get to enjoy that stability of electricity, even though
you can do
it might seem temporal.
Look, if you want a short term, we have talked about this thing. You go solar, but also you can deploy industrial generators There are some generators that can give you 100 megawatts, 150, 250 megawatts, and now the price of fuel has come down by about 30%, the price of diesel. So the impact of running industrial generators maybe for 2 months or for 3 months wouldn't be as terrible as it would have been a few months ago, because those are the only readily available options. Either you deploy industrial generators or you sustain the momentum on the solar deployment where you are developing the sunshine economy.
All right, we're now picking calls. The number is on the screen. Kindly come through and give us your questions or comments regarding the issues that we have on the table. Now, Mr. Chikwanda, unlike the electricity situation, we've seen, like you mentioned rightly, that there's been stability in the fuel subsector. Prices have reduced by like 25-30%, for the past 2 to 3 months. What are we doing right, in this sector that has seen this stability?
On the petroleum side?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. When you look at first of all, there are a number of factors that you have to look at. You check the international markets, what is happening to the international markets, how are the prices moving, and then you also check the risk profile in the transit corridors, what is happening, and then you come into the country, what is happening to the exchange rate, is there any policy innovations that is taking place which could have a bearing. So when you look into our in-country situation, the biggest factor which really contributed significantly to the haircut that we have seen to the pump price has been the exchange rate, because that's for the past 4 months or so, you can see that the exchange rate has the kwacha has appreciated by more than 15%. I think it's been quite significant. So it is the number one factor that has taken the industry to the haircut for like never before. But then there was also when we declared the open access, we declared the Tazama pipeline as a common carrier. What it did is that because they competed, the players started to compete, so they had to try and outdo each other on certain margins to a certain extent. So we got maybe another 4-5% from that policy innovation, and otherwise the biggest driver here has been the exchange rate. So anything that sustains that momentum on the exchange rate is going to have a significant impact on what happens to the pump price for the remainder of the year. That is what I can, I can say that.
Well, it's good you mentioned the subject of open access and Tazama being declared as a common carrier. How much of a game changer, from your perspective, we've heard from the Ministry of Energy, stating that open access is a game changer. But from you, technically, how much of a game changer? Are you able to paint a picture to us, the advantages that open access has brought, in the petroleum subsector?
Oh yes, I think I remember us having some talk around this same thing. There are many ways to why an asset is declared a common carrier. The major factor is to encourage wide participation from many players, so that there is no monopolization of a common asset, because common assets can get captured by a powerful actor in the market directly or through proxies. So when you declare something a common carrier, you are trying to say, look, we are committed to ensuring that we develop the private sector, we give everyone a chance as much as possible. So that's a beautiful thing. But then you are also aware that because people will be competing, they are going to be competing on price. So because they'll be competing on price, there is, to some extent, you are going to benefit from a better price. But there is a caveat to that, because in this industry, the margins are very thin. And because of the instability in the international markets and the exchange rate, so everyone sits and lives on a knife edge. So if you over discount, you will fail to deliver. You will fail to deliver. So that is, one of the downsides. So we've had some benefit from this declaration of Tazama as a common carrier, in as much as we're not seeing very, very high prices, because multiple parties are trying to outdo each other. So to that extent, we would say that there has been a contribution. But certainly, I don't think it is more than 10%. If it is more than that, then we are coming from an environment where we are being exploited. But, about 10%, that is quite decent if you get something up to that, because the margins are low. So we cannot rule out that the declaration has benefited, that policy innovation has helped as well to try and drive the price down, to try and keep the price in check, so that anyone who tries to stick their head over and above the competition, they have to think twice. That is what that policy is helping us to achieve.
Now, speaking of policy, and also in terms of pricing, when you talk about the fuel sector, if we look back at a policy that was initially introduced of the monthly review, I remember when this just came up, it received a lot of reactions, negative reactions inclusive. Economists had weighed in on this and did not see this as something that would be very sustainable and having a greater effect towards the different subsectors of our economy. A few years down the line, I remember when the immediate past Ministry of Energy Permanent Secretary was being sworn in by President Hichilema. One of the issues that he was told to address was the issue of the monthly review system, and this was being described as irritating to the people of Zambia. We did not see much change really happening, despite that statement by President Hichilema and the now former Permanent Secretary. But when we look at what this has been over the years, has it had any impact, and what could be the reason why this still remains as it is now, despite the concerns that have been raised?
Yeah, first and foremost, when a policy direction is being, developed, there is the stakeholder consultations. So when the country was migrating to a monthly price cycle, that policy, the industry was consulted. The oil marketing companies were consulted. And everyone felt that that was the best way to proceed, so that we align with what happens in other countries in the region. And that is how we all migrated, And I also was part of the people that supported actually that policy. But down the road, we noted that the policy was not serving us according to what we wanted. Because at that particular time, it coincided with the tremendous instability in the international market. That is when the war between Ukraine and Russia was starting. So the prices kept on changing and building up. Every month, the price kept on moving up and jumping all over the space. And that created a lot of anxieties in the public. And we all thought that this policy, I think, of monthly review, I think it would work well in stable market, where you take a month or two without any price change, it goes down maybe the other month, but not when it is going down consistently, you would destabilize the market. And if it is going up also consistently, you would destabilize the market. Like these price reductions over the past 3 months, they have destabilized the industry. They have suffered terrible losses in the industry because of the stock levels which have been keeping. But if it is going up the other way around, again, it is the consumer that suffers. So finding a balance can be very, very challenging. But to put your answer in your question now, let me develop the answer to your question. The challenge that we see is that we are too far inland. So fuel to move from the coastline, you're taking about two weeks for your fuel to arrive. So if you have placed an order as an oil company, to move it from Dar es Salaam for it to arrive, to take your tankers, it's about 2 weeks. So you virtually have got 2 weeks to clear that stock, or else you'll be caught up potentially in another cycle of a price change. And because the industry does not want to suffer, so they keep very lean fuel stock levels, which is again not good for the country. So these are some of the pockets of stockouts that we have had, because everyone is keeping very little stock because they don't want to be caught up in another cycle of a price of reduction. So whether this policy has saved, I think in my view, I've never seen a policy that has faced so much resistance from the public. Whether the prices were going down or up, the cry has been loud and clear that we need to find a better formula that balances the expectations of everyone. Maybe 45 days or 2 months cycle can give a bit of some stability. That's what I would say. So I heard the other time that ERB was considering to look for a consultant to help, how to find a formula. I don't know, but we need to do something about that.
In conclusion, Dr. Chikwanda, in your view, what key policy or structural reforms must government prioritize if Zambia is to achieve long-term energy security?
Well, first and foremost, we need to start building our strategic petroleum reserves. We've got the tanks in many places in the country. They don't have fuel. So we need to find a way of ensuring that we are keeping strategic fuel reserves, because you can use them for strategic purposes. We need to implement or develop the biofuels policy in order to unlock the potential of the biofuels. If we roll out successfully, learn from other countries that have done it successfully, the country could be saving in the range of $200 to $400 million per year. So when you do that, it means that the pressure on the kwacha is also becoming less, but we are also developing more jobs through outgrower schemes for the crop that we will have all agreed. As it is, we have not agreed on what crop to use. We are talking of cassava, the others are sugarcane. Even maize can be used. So we need to agree, all of us. We need to create predictability to allow for investment to flow. So that's on the petroleum sector. On the electricity side, we are facing in the correct direction. The policy framework is okay. It has to maintain the momentum to ensure that the migration to other forms of energy do not fail. There should be no tripping over commitment. And I'm seeing a lot of determination. I'm seeing a lot of political will in this regard, so that in the post-dependence on hydro, we should not be able to be falling in the cracks. And that is what we need to be doing. So electricity side, I think a lot has been done. We just need to encourage people. Net metering must work. We want to see you're starting to sell and giving up, and ensuring that all the projects that are in the pipeline come online, ensuring that we have gone back into core as well, maybe get 1,000. And that is, the direction is clear, because the integrated resource plan for the sector is already in place. So it is to ensure that there is not tripping over when it comes to implementing the integrated resource plan for the country.
Dr. Chikwanda, thank you so much for making time to be a part of tonight's edition of Diamond Live.
Thank you very much, and good evening.
Well, very quickly, Chimweka, as we close the program, Kezia NK on Facebook, we had asked how the electricity situation in your area is, and your responses as follows. Kezia says very useless. Mwansapiri says it's terrible. Masha Zongwe says bad. Kayunga says baddest. Chongo says sinidi. Phineas says stable. Albert says Is it still the drought? Ndola pathetic. Martin Lutheran King says at least more than 8 hours. Susi Mwa Namayo Silwamba Sande says Black Muntu and I don't know how our leaders keep their eyes closed on things that can bring them down. Honestly speaking, I am a UPND supporter with the card, but this current state of electricity in our country has more impact on the campaigning our president, and I don't know if he's aware of this. As for now, we don't have a president who can lead us like my president HH, but the way I know Zambian people can or will vote Chivote in order to remove him. So please, Mr. President, work on this deficit of electricity, and I can assure you that people still have hope in you. Those are some of the comments we had on our Facebook page.
Well, people expressing their thoughts. I mean, when you talk about electricity supply, this is something that affects so many people, either on a personal level from their households, others from a business level, because when they get to work, they have some of these challenges, especially for the small and medium enterprises. You can imagine what this is like, and it has a major effect on our economy. A lot of the work that we do, especially in the urban areas, has a lot to do with electricity, and some of this also trickles down to other parts of the country as well, and how business gets to be conducted, and some of these services get to be delivered. So at the end of the day, you can understand where people are coming from with all their concerns there, and how everyone hopes for a situation where electricity is stable. I know there's been so many calls, even by ZESCO, encouraging Zambians to go solar, for example, which is an alternative source of energy away from the hydroelectricity supply that most of us as Zambians have gotten used to. I think another one of the concerns even from that with going solar has been the affordability. How many people are able to afford this on a household level?
That's true.
Or even just from a business level. And I know these are issues that, for example, the Ministry of SME Development has also been looking into and ensuring that people have access to some of these products at a much more affordable rate, so that we have, especially for those in the business side of things, be able to benefit and sustain themselves during this particular time. All in all, I guess because we're a Christian nation, a prayerful nation, we pray for as much rainfall as possible, so that we have enough of the rainfall seasons to sustain us. But with addition to all the projects, our guest, the energy expert, Dr. Johnstone Chikwanda, also spoke of even just the intentions that have been made through the Zambia Development Agency, ZDA, of what they plan on establishing here in Zambia. And a lot of them are these solar power plants. So imagine if we have all of this culminating into something that will be more sustainable for Zambians beyond even just our generation. I think it's something that will be definitely ideal.
It's first to mention that the two provinces facing this huge challenge of electricity are the urban provinces like Lusaka and the Copperbelt. I was shocked to learn that in Mbala, power only cuts for an hour. But also, myself and you, Chimweka, we have a mutual friend in Mlowezi, Mr. OBP, who says that power doesn't cut there. You know what I mean? And so, I would have loved to, learn from the people from other provinces as well. But also, it's because the demand in that area is not as
populations,
much as it is here in Lusaka, and the Copperbelt. But I think if you have, 24 hours of power, you tell us that I'm not affected, by load shedding that is in Lusaka and the Copperbelt. But thank you so much for making the time to be a part of tonight's edition of Diamond Live. We're looking at the energy sector, some of the initiatives that government is putting in place and whether they're working. Dr. Johnstone Chikwanda is energy expert. He was joining us to give us his views and his projections on when load shedding is ending. He said that load shedding, according to him, that with the projects being put in place by the first quarter of next year, we should say bye to load shedding. But we'll see and wait until that time. My name is Andrew Mwansa.
I'm Chimweka. Enjoy the rest of your night. Coming up next is the Stephen Bibi Show.